Alright, so I played a game recently called Gambit, The Cursed Crew. This is a real sad one for multiple reasons. The developer actually went bankrupt and had to close. The second is the fact that the game is very buggy, and I enjoyed it quite a bit, but those bugs really get in the way. Seemingly there is no actual fix, and occasionally I've even had it crash without an explanation. Anyway, I don't think it's a good recommendation because of that. Even if I do ultimately believe that this is a good game here, if niche. What is it about? Come down to the Caribbean, see the sights, enjoy the salty sea air, and of course get mugged and killed by the undead magical pirates. This is if the Inquisition doesn't decide to burn you for some random reason first. What did I enjoy? This particular kind of formula is unique. I have never seen a game like this, or at least another game like this from another developer, because as it turns out, they've made multiple games with this exact same kind of gameplay. There's a samurai one, the Wild West, and now the pirate one. Personally, I've had zero interest in others, but after playing this one, I might change my mind. So the idea here is that the player is going through levels with multiple characters using stealth. It's difficult to compare it to anything, hence the praise. I guess the closest thing are those old-school CRPGs with real-time combat and an ability to pause at any time. Sadly, I absolutely abhor those, but here it works because the crew is generally tiny, and every action has a lot of weight behind it, meaning it's easy to get caught and mess up, so when you do actually pull it off, it's quite satisfying. The voice acting is also pretty nice, especially a big fan of Zeg, and that's definitely Aratus' voice there. Although I never saw the credits. Afia and Salady are good too, and I pretty much mained them, so I got exactly what I wanted. And that's it as far as praise goes, sadly. The story isn't too much to speak of. It was enjoyable early, but as the stakes went up, it became a lot more serious. And I think it would have been better as this kind of B-movie goof fest. Instead of time soul this and captains too important that, Ignatia is also a bit boring. I kept expecting some sort of twist, like she's actually a Fia from another timeline, or she's Marley's sibling or something. But no, she's just some Inquisition chick who is obsessed with her dogma. Although story-wise, I do want to shout out Toy's Crewtail. That was unexpected. So Lady was pretty cool too, but the rest were forgettable. Some, like John's Crewtail, was downright lazy. Like we've had only 2 chapters of it, so we've had to stretch it into 5. I did like the ending, but the pacing was awful. Similar problem with others. Anyways, so the negatives. Bugs are numerous. The first one, which appears for 80% of the game, is the water level. For whatever reason, in this game, the water level is inconsistent. That means that sometimes you can just have levels all blue and completely submerged, but not really, because it's just visual. And sometimes it's not even what it looks like, so when the camera turns, there is no more water anymore. This makes the game visually into a complete mess, making it impossible to see where you're going, where the enemy is looking at, or any of the details. I honestly almost dropped the game because the first level was 100% underwater for me, with the exception of a big tower close to the end. I just couldn't see anything, and had to rely on the outlines to hopefully guide the way, but I failed a bunch of times. This doesn't sound too bad for some, but this happens every bloody map. And what I mean is, start the mission, load, get to the landing. It's going to be submerged. Restart every single time, and it's no longer submerged. This is idiotic. I don't understand why this is like that. Also the same exact problem with the water splash. Every time some character jumps into the water from a height, the splash just stays there, obscuring half the screen sometimes. God, what a difficult word to say, strangely enough. But then that splash doesn't get visible under certain angles. This was infuriating. I had to avoid going an easier way through the water sometimes because of that. This was the most annoying bug. Aside from that, I've had the game crash over and over without any rhyme or reason in the exact same spot. I believe it only happened once, but I could be remembering it wrong. Point is that it can happen, but doing the sequence of events differently seemingly fixed it. Again, it was another reason to be frustrated. And there's also a problem with the pathing. You have to babysit your characters because the pathing AI is absolutely idiotic. They would go through enemies, go through every line of sight, and sometimes do stupid crap like walk right up to enemies to do a ranged attack instead of picking a right angle. It's not necessarily a bug, but it sure as hell sometimes felt like it. When I told them to go to the extraction and instead of going the shorter, safer path, they go right through the only path of the map still with enemies in it. Doors are also inconsistent. Sometimes the characters are automatically taking them, and sometimes they go around and again right into the enemy. Speaking of, there are abilities which can displace enemies, and those don't always do what you want them to do. With enemies bumping into walls, walking into random direction, or going way further than what the ability would indicate. In addition, Yuki's Tanuki Parade is especially buggy. I've had Kuma get stuck somewhere and refuse to move. Yet enemies sometimes still moved where Kuma should be, and sometimes they would run straight at Yuki. And sometimes they would turn, look, and turn right back. Her trap also sometimes covered an area, and sometimes was just a tiny dot. It's just a messy, buggy character all around. Although Toya was a little weird too. You could never 100% tell where the enemies would be after using his lure ability. Really only Quentin really behaved consistently. Enemies either walk up to pick up a skull or they don't. There is no real middle ground there. Bearing that, there's a more minor complaint, but the difficulty felt all over the place. Sometimes the levels were simple but with a lot of enemies, so it would just be time consuming to slowly pick them off. And sometimes it would be barren levels with one big chunk of enemies which don't get distracted, and of course that's where the objective is. Or not. There were actually levels teeming with enemies, yet the objective was one tiny thing with like one guard. None of it was unfair, but well, again, the balance wasn't always struck. So it was difficult to go some levels, and I do remember there was that one time when I was tasked with looting a certain thing on top of a tower covered in enemies. So I just selected John, teleported twice, walked into a door, looted it, and left without a single enemy even looking in my direction. It was the easiest mission in the whole game. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm definitely saddened that the developer isn't around anymore. I would have loved if they fixed some stuff I mentioned or made more games. Maybe an immersive sim or an RPG for example, but what can you do?